All right, we are back. Episode 20 of the split screen experience. Joined by, I mean, at this point, we have to shake up the intro because it's just the core three now, like routinely here. So that's new ish, kind of. So I am me, joined by these two, you know them, you love them, you hate them, peeps. Why don't you go ahead and don't be shy now?
It is I, Jarrett.
And because, we said we were changing it up, I was going to let Jerry go first, kind of not being responsive to
Well,
it.
I did not. I didn't want to take your thunder. I didn't want to take your thunder.
But yes, we are switching it up. Jared's going second, and I decided to go last this time.
Oh, how far we've come. So, what's everyone been playing lately? What's been the update?
I have unfortunately got into another Stellaris addiction.
Mm.
I hate myself, but
Right.
it's
Naturally.
getting. I'm getting too invested in it again. But yesterday I played the new season of Siege. I'm pretty upset about the whole recruit reworking. Didn't like it. Don't care for it. I'd much rather go back to the older Siege where you could have recruit rushes and ranked, but that's just me.
Like, it wouldn't be a problem if it didn't seem like, yeah, like on paper at least. Like, I haven't played the new season yet, but like the attacker variant of the recruit seems so much more useful than the defender, where they can bring impact EMPs and hard breaches, meaning they're the only hard breacher realistically that can disable counters and push through all in one op instead of, running like thermite bandit or thermite Thatcher. That's the one I was looking for. It's like you can have one dude just turn it off and push through.
I had a gripe about that as well, but I started thinking about it. You can't do them at the same time because they're impacts, and the hard breach you have to place like when you place it, it goes off immediately, so there's no even like prepping it.
I mean, but even if like if as long as we're not dealing with a bandit, he will push through because like he can disable the like a Cade Claw for long enough, right?
No,
He can't.
no, I don't think
Oh.
so.
Yeah, I wasn't sure what the timing was on that. The whole EMP thing got run ages ago when they made it to where Thatcher didn't just destroy gadgets.
Deemed it too strong.
Well, it's like I think this is like gonna be like kind of controversial, maybe, I don't know. I think the concept of like bandit tricking and half the shit that the main community uses, I think it's dumb. Like, especially with the inclusion of like Tuberel, that to me is like the equivalent of bandit tricking, where it's like, oh, they're gonna start freeze it, and then you could try to destroy it with like a nade through like a vent or whatever to try to get rid of their breach. I don't know. To me, that makes more sense to have in the game than bandit tricking. I feel like bandits should have to kind of power up like a mute jammer. Which honestly, out of those two things, I feel like the mute jammer should be the thing that immediately takes effect. But no, Ubisoft's like, oh, it's too hard. Everything's too hard.
Dang it, we have to make our game better? Oh no.
Plus, they lied because they used screenshots on their update panel, or like update change log, whatever. And it showed that Stadium Bravo was becoming a night map because we had heard leaks and stuff that night maps were returning. So we kind of held off on producing something that would have been much easier to do last week. Not thrilled about that one, so there's something from Odd Horizons going to take a little bit longer to start working on, but once we get it out, I'm sure you guys are going to be pretty happy with it. But Ubisoft, if anyone's listening, go straight to hell. You've ruined me. Like, if you would just let us have duplicate ops and custom games, if we choose like that setting, that'd be nice. You'd make my life a lot better, but I guarantee you I won't get that.
Yes.
Probably not.
Yeah, it's just a nightmare. But anyway.
Anyway.
So yeah, and I also know by the time this goes out, it should be up. We watched the Xbox showcase together, so I kind of know what everyone's thoughts are. But for anyone who didn't watch that video, go check it out. But also, what was everyone's kind of final thoughts now that we've had a couple days to sit with all the announcements and whatnot?
I'm pretty happy with it. I think the biggest surprise for me was the fact that they're gonna reboot the Gears franchise effectively. I was not expecting it, but it's a welcome change. As long as they get it back to some semblance of what it was like, I'd be very happy. But other than that, I'm excited for Dreadwolf. Also very excited for the new Doom game. I was very pleasantly surprised we saw that today. I was like, wow, okay. This looks very good. I'm gonna lose a weekend to a week of my life on that game, but
Let's be real, it's gonna be a month.
No, not for a Doom game.
Doom they're pretty short.
You can beat a Doom game in an afternoon if you're good enough for the most part.
Yeah, I got all the way through. I think I got pretty much all the way through Doom Eternal and Ultraviolent, and then there's just one part where I'm like, I'm gonna lose my mind if I keep doing this.
Yeah. And it looked cool. I mean, like all the stuff we saw, like the new shield looks great. Again, the one thing we didn't see, but I would logically assume you could, would be to have the sword and the shield at the same time. We'll see.
Right.
That shield looks really cool, but I would love to be able to hold it with the sword just because the visual of Doomslayer with that cloak and a shield with serrated blades spinning around it and this Hellblade, like, oh, nut.
So.
The one thing though, and I didn't know it till today, and I didn't tell you about this, Jarrett. Did see a post, and I don't know if it's an error, but it is saying that Doom Dark Ages is coming to PlayStation.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the Doom franchise is going to stay multi-platform.
Shouldn't.
I think they're. Well, I don't know about that. I'm kind of like on the side of like Doom's just been around for so long that like I feel like it's one of those brands that probably should stay multi-platform. But like I do think that maybe there should be like a time limit or something that so Xbox can take advantage of it. But like
the market's been dominated by the idea of exclusives. Now that is the only reason to pick whatever console you're on, according to people. Like people will leave a platform if their friends are on one, but there's better exclusives, quote unquote, on the other. They will go to the other one. They're not playing with friends anymore. They'll buy the platform, whatever, or your people who buy both. I know those people exist. I feel like they're fairly rare. I feel like most people, either due to monetary constraint or just general lack of enthusiasm, will only buy one. But I don't know. It's like we bought you. You make games for us now. Tough. Because if all the people want to be like, oh, Xbox doesn't have any exclusives, and then that's the behaviors, anything we buy now, if it's an older brand, that we have to give it away seems kind of bad too.
So I think on that kind of side as well, like at this point, it seems like Microsoft is or Xbox is maybe starting to lay the groundworks of a monopoly, just because they bought one of the biggest publishers, Bethesda, and they've got their market. Activision, that seems pretty big. I mean, yeah, there's still companies out there like EA and Ubisoft and that sort of thing, but both of those companies have pretty poor track records. But we'll see. We'll see. I'm kind of shocked that they haven't filed countersuits or anything about like monopolies or that kind of thing, or they haven't, or maybe it just doesn't constitute a monopoly. But
wasn't that whole thing with the FCC?
Yes, that was their claim, was they were going to own too much of a gaming share of the market, and it's like not even close to like how much that you need to constitute that. Because like although like Sony isn't buying up studios or anything, but I mean you got to think about like when they have like Sony Santa Monica, how many people work there? They have studios internally that they create internally and then staff. That's still a share of the gaming market. Like that's where Sony likes to play the card of like, oh, but like we're just like a small group of people. Like Microsoft's being mean.
See, like, I kind of get the side, like, it seems like for the most part, Sony builds up most of their companies, though, into, like, making these, like, oh, yeah, Santa Monica and stuff, but, like, they pretty much bought, I don't know if they really built or bought, but it seems like they've built that company up to where it is, like, from where it is, they're not, like, necessarily buying immediately in to something kind of, like, massive, like Bethesda and that sort of thing, but...
Yeah. I mean, I get that. Like, I understand like the difference of those views, but I don't know. To me, it's like, again, when the market has shifted completely to the idea of these exclusives being the driving force, I feel like any company has the right to try to get whatever they can get their hands on. Like, if Nintendo wanted to buy some other company and have them make their games now on Nintendo only, I feel like that's within their, their provision as an industry. But no one would get mad about that because everyone acknowledges that Nintendo is not even in the gaming market at this point.
They try their hardest.
Roll faster! Roll faster!
Yeah, that company's fucking. I don't understand how Nintendo is so behind the time. I think that's one thing we can all agree on is just like, man, you guys are slow, considering they figured out DLCs like 15 years after everyone else, and then they re-forgot them because with Tears of the Kingdom, it's just Breath of the Wild, but with like a new 2 sections and a new ability, and it's like, so that's a DLC, like that's what that is, and they're like, no, new game. Backwards company, swear to God.
I don't know what to think with the Xbox. I want Xbox to succeed, but I understand that if they limit their audience, it's not gonna work out for them because basically loss of revenue, and then basically everyone who owns Game Pass won't be buying it either. They're just still trying to make some money from it.
But I mean, I think you're kind of like unintentionally bringing up what probably is their point, is the idea of they're just trying to keep people on Game Pass because that's what they see as probably the thing moving forward that's going to make them the most money. Because we know that like no company makes a profit on these consoles. They break even or they make like $50 a unit. They don't make a lot. Like there's not a super high markup because they know they can't, at a certain point, if they mark it up too much, people will just get a PC. They have to remain in this like under $500 threshold to be viable. Maybe like 556 if it was like a pro model that was, more powerful for the times, but Microsoft might be pushing that subscription idea because they realize, well, hey, we can afford to buy these companies, put them on Game Pass. We don't need you to buy it because if you're going to say sub to Game Pass, what's Game Pass Ultimate for a year? Like, I mean, it's over $100, but what is it like? It's
I'd
like
say it's
18
like
a month.
$200 or something.
Yeah,
roughly.
After taxes, it's like 8.
Yeah. So, you think, well, within like 3.5 months, you've paid for one of these games, but you don't own it. I mean, it's not necessarily a bad thing because as long as you continue to pay for it and it's an Xbox game, you will have access to that game forever. As long as that subscription is active and you have, connection. And I think that might be their strong suit is the idea, like, because we do definitely have slower months of Game Pass where I feel that you perceive less value in that subscription, but there's enough good months to make up for it. So you just keep it, which might be the rationale of like, okay, we get them to effectively not buy 3 games a year or whatever, but we keep them on this recurring billing cycle. Half of us just kind of forget it's there. They made it so easy to get, Ultimate to have Gold and Game Pass rolled into one. I know it's not Gold anymore, which pisses me off, but whatever. I grew up in my day, we called it Xbox Live Gold. You bought a gift card with the Xbox avatars on it and you liked it.
You had your
Back in my day.
The Xbox points, don't forget about them.
Dude, Microsoft points were so much. The fact that we're taxed on digital goods is stupid. Why? No human does anything with that transaction. And it's like, well, 7 cents on the dollar. It's like, I'm going to beat you up. And not to mention one thing, man, I'm gonna rant one thing, a negative about Microsoft here real quick. They got rid of their support team, the same like the structure that they had for years, not too long ago. Maybe it is a while ago now. You can't call them anymore. You have to justify an issue to get them to call you, which I don't like because half their half the categories on the website where it's like, oh, what's your issue today? Like billing, game won't load, can't purchase goods, whatever. Half of them will give you an article and you say, I already read it. And it goes, this issue does not constitute a phone call. So you cannot get in touch with these people. I had to bully them to get in touch with me so that I could tell them that I wanted a refund that they denied on a digital good that I played for 20 minutes and realized was garbage. And I'm still getting taxed on those goods. And it's like, I get taxed and I can't even call in to get support on the thing anymore. And not to mention, this woman, I mean, I know it's tech support, whatever. There's already the stereotype that it's never going to be someone who speaks your language, no matter what part of the world you're in, pretty much. this definitely was one of those times where she was definitely English second language, which I'm not faulting someone in a different country for not knowing my language because everyone knows they outsource. All the companies do. But on top of that, the phone call had like a 9-second delay on me talking and her receiving it. So apparently it's getting relayed a bunch of times. That's causing like a latency, which made that phone call even more unbearable, which she couldn't understand what I was saying. This has been the old man section of the podcast. Now back to the 20-somethings.
Go back to video games. Go back to talking about video games. I think Veilguard's gonna shock a lot of people. And I think they're going to repeat what Inquisition did in 2014 and win Game of the Year.
I was going to say, because, well, I mean, I guess we can lay that out. What do we think? It's like, so far this year, what is Game of the Year material? Because I think that is like, BioWare will almost always at least get nominated.
Shadow of the Erdtree.
If that gets up there, I'll get pissed off. I'm not going to lie. Until there's a best expansion category, I don't want to see a DLC up on that podium ever. The fact that Phantom Liberty or whatever for Cyberpunk, I was like, that shouldn't be up there. Regardless of how you feel about that game, that's not a new game. That's an update drop for a game that came out years ago. Just because they were still supporting it because the game wasn't finished when they sold it to you. Yeah, it's like, Veilguard. What else come out this year? Actually, now that I'm thinking about it,
Dragon Dogma 2,
that
Clowns.
That's no.
Stellar
Blade for me.
Stellar Blade, unironically, might get up there just because, again, like how it's kind of like inspired by a bunch of very popular things from the past.
Like it was definitely, I really enjoyed it. Like I was like, yeah, like I had a slow start at the beginning, but then like I really got into it, and I was like, okay, got my platinum, cool. And I was like, okay, that was pretty fun. Like I liked that game a lot.
It looked like Bayonetta flavored Dark Souls, which I'm like, I like those two things. Like,
right.
Oh, if this wins it also, if Last of Us Part 2 Remastered wins Game of the Year, I will do a live stream for Odd Horizons where I Kurt Cobain. Remaster should not be on the podium either. Again, the Resident Evil one getting up there last year. I love Resident Evil. Shouldn't have been on there. I'm trying to go through the JJK fighting game. That could be a Game of the Year.
No.
Helldivers 2 is going to get a nod. I don't know. I know people have different opinions here. I don't think it should win Game of the Year probably, but it'll probably get nominated. I don't think it I'm not saying it shouldn't get nominated. I think it shouldn't win though. Like it is cool that a game like an online multiplayer game has been able to drum up as much hype as it did, but apparently there's a Mario versus Donkey Kong game this year, but no one would have known that. Oh, that Warhammer game later this year probably is going to be an option.
Is that the multiplayer one?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's like co-op, 4-player co-op, something like that. Space Marines.
Oh, that'll be fun.
I think so. It might not be. I don't know. I'll have to check that actually. I don't want to speak out of my ass. It's like nothing but garbage here on this list that I'm going through, and it has like a bunch of different platforms. So it's not like I'm only looking at like Xbox or PC. It's got all of them, and it's like nothing. It's a bunch of PC games that look like garbage.
Content warning or whatever that game is.
Didn't see that on here, but honestly, something like that or Lethal Company to me, it's in that same ballpark of like it was able to drum up a bunch of support. So if it got up there, I wouldn't be mad.
Right.
This is where again I think that the Game Awards really need to look at themselves and invent a few new categories like best single player game, best multiplayer game, best expansion, best remaster. Because now that gaming's been around as long as it has, we're getting like I would argue probably at least 8 remasters that I know about a year. So you have definitely enough to fill out that category.
Right.
That Rise of the Ronin, I don't know what the final takeaway was on that one for review.
Yeah, I haven't. I need to keep playing with it, but what's it called? It was a bad starting out. I mean, like I don't know if it should I don't think it should win Game of the Year. I don't think, but it was it's still decent. I would say. What was it? What other games came out, man? Oh, I think something on the podium for me should definitely be Banishers.
Yeah,
Banishers, that was a really good game. I thought
I still
I
need
had
to
a
get my
good time
hands on
with it.
that. Yeah, at this point, I'm just gonna wait for it to go on sale. Then I'm gonna snag that because it looks good. I mean, it's like a good studio behind it. Um, the one thing I did see, yeah, and you kind of alluded to at least a little bit that like the one thing that they could have probably done just a little bit better would just be making the combat feel a little bit more
Mm-hmm.
oomph. Which, if that's the weakest point of the game, is it could have used a little bit more of a oomph. That's a pretty solid game overall. Still,
Right. Yeah, like I went through and I played Banishers a couple of times, so I had to get the different endings or whatever.
Mhm.
Like if you definitely play through it once, like if you're going from point A to point B and you're doing everything, it's definitely a good game. But like
Mm.
for me, like going back and playing it again was kind of I did it really close together, so it kind of got a little old just because. And I will say the combat did tend or start to it did kind of start to get a little old depending on the enemies that you went against, but
Mm.
overall, like I mean, it was still fun. The combat was still fun. It was just kind of like after a while, you're like, I kind of done this already. But
Right. And that's what, yeah, I saw people, the reviewers all said that for the most part. It's like, just once you've been in it for a little too long, it's like, okay, now the combat is just kind of like meh. And it's like, if
right,
there's a Banishers 2, maybe then they figure it out. Because this is the team behind Vampire, right?
that's a good question. It does seem like they're pretty closely related, but
Don't Nod, Saber Interactive. Who made Banishers? I think it's them. Yeah, Don't Nod. Yeah, it's the same people. Yeah, that's why I was like, okay. Because I liked Vampire, even though I'm pretty sure the only other person I know that's played it is you, Jared. But
yeah, Vampire was definitely cool. I wish we could get another game like that. That was
Mhm.
definitely a rad play.
Yeah, it's like I'm all for like random kind of weird games, and I felt like that one was a little strange, and I appreciated that.
Yeah, Andrew, I think we're kind of cut of the same cloth. We'll find like a random indie game and it'll change our lives, and then we'll just go on a binge on just oh yeah, this game is really obscure. I'll try it, and then you're just looking at this TV screen after watching the credits, like I'm not the same person anymore.
Me finishing Soma and then just going and sitting outside for like an hour, just staring at the ground. I'm like,
Soma fucked me up. It was like,
dude,
yeah,
that game, like, it's so good. For anyone out there that isn't like a big horror fan, I would still recommend Soma. It's not like horrifying. There's like two parts for me that got me. Um,
hmm
but otherwise, like, it's just thought provoking and genuinely has a good story and message, and it doesn't feel like it's heavy handed, but not in a bad way. Like they could have tried to be
right,
like super abstract with that concept, and it's like it's really not. It's like, hey, are you you? If I copy you, is that you? Are you you? Or neither you? It's like, get out of my head! Get out of my
no,
head!
that's impossible. Just yeah, that was wild. I was like, I never thought about that before. And
Yeah,
just some of those scenes, you're like, oh, um, this is bad. I feel bad for these guys. I need to go home now.
it's like it's a horror. It's one of the rare horror games where I feel like you actually have to live with consequences.
hmm
In that, like, not that you like change the ending or anything, but you like because like certain sections where you have to like power up certain things, you have to unplug people. Um,
Yeah, that shit got wild.
so it's like, oh, well, sorry, bud, I need to power this door. Yoink, just unplug grandma real quick. Yeah, that's a good one.
It doesn't sound fun.
Yeah, Herman, we know you don't like horror games.
It's too
Yeah.
scary.
No, I'm just not a fan of it.
Okay, so I'm looking ahead, and like, it's gonna be a bad year. I, I think Veilguard, honestly, as long as it comes out and doesn't have like a complete gutterball story, it definitely makes the podium because there's like
Yeah.
nothing else, at least that we know about. Because it's like I'm scrolling ahead to November. Admittedly, there's only like 4 here for November, and obviously there will probably be more than 4 games. but like it just in this month, it's 2 games that are one. I don't know what this Anton Blast is. It's only coming to Switch and PC, so no one will play it. There's this Slitterhead, which is done by like the original people behind Silent Hill, and it looks like garbage. I saw this trailer like the first day of Summer Games Fest. I was like, that looks horrible. I'm sorry. Like again, I'm not saying like when you're like the original minds behind whatever like if you're like the guys behind BioShock, I'm not saying every game you make needs to be a BioShock, but this doesn't even look like it's in the same ballpark. Like this looks like just hot, steamy garbage. So I'm like, all right, I could be wrong. Maybe come November I'll be like, actually that game looks really good. But yeah, no, this is like going to be a fairly dead year. There's that Life is Strange game that'll probably get a nod because people eat that shit up. People love Square Enix. So in the popularity contest, it'll probably make the podium. But yeah, so I think Harmon's correct that Veilguard is a fairly decent shoe-in, as pending a return to form from BioWare, because the last 2 outings haven't been ideal.
Yeah, it's a shame. I wish at this point I feel like BioWare would, if Veilguard does good, like I feel like at some point, like I think these individual companies or studios underneath the EA umbrella kind of need to look internally and be like, can we like try to find somewhere else to go? Mm-hmm. Like, can we find another source of money that isn't just going to screw us over when our game doesn't necessarily hit the expectations right away? Like, but
yeah, because at that point EA either needs to reform their model, or I don't even know what the or is in that situation, because like developers could just leave and start their own teams, but then they would never be able to work on Mass Effect or anything. Like that would all be under EA still. So that's kind of the issue when you have your creative rights bought out, which kind of in that same vein, like because Remedy recently announced that they are remaking Max Payne 1 and 2, so I'm very excited about that. Because like I don't really remember the first one. I played the shit out of the second one, and then they didn't make the third one because technically it got bought, but I don't know if they own it again. Because our favorite developer, in some cases that's not sarcastic, but Rockstar made Max Payne 3, in case people didn't know.
I feel like I played it, but I don't remember what happened.
It's Max Payne 3 is just kind of generic. Max Payne 2 is like super cool, like noir, whatever, like noir detective dealing with things. I don't know. For the time period, it felt cool to like yeah, you see, yeah, I'm a detective. I have a drinking problem, and because like the only other game that really did that for me, where it's like, oh, I get to live like that, like I mean, this is like a more like informal kind of noir. But then like, LA Noir, in the name, but like that one was like truly then versus, I'm pretty sure Max Payne's like a modern noir story, which is cool. But yeah, it's like, that's the issue though with those, when the creative rights are bought, it stops things. Cause I imagine they don't own any rights to the Max Payne brand moving forward because they're not remaking 3. Because I feel like if you're going to do 1 and 2, you might as well have just gone ahead and done 3, but they didn't make it. So maybe Rockstar only bought the rights to make the 3rd game. I doubt it. But also, this was like pre-GTA 5, I'm pretty sure. I want to say Max Payne 3 was like 2011. So, I don't know. Yeah, so I don't know. It's a hard thing because, them being bought out. Because, people want to point, again, I know we had this conversation. I don't think it was on the podcast. If it was, just go ahead and cut me off. But, like, people want to quickly go, oh, yeah, EA is the reason why everything bad has happened. It's like, no, EA shot the most recent ones in the head before they could be fixed. But, like, to be fair, they did buy BioWare, like, I think immediately after Mass Effect 1.
That's true.
So it's like, it's been a more recent issue.
What's like, that? Like, Oh, sorry, go ahead, Harmon.
So we got Mass Effect 2 and 3 from it, and those are...
Yeah.
Yeah, like, there was definitely a golden period for when they were there, but then, like, now it's just like, oh, Mass Effect Andromeda? Oh, well, you guys don't like the faces? Well, we could fix those. No, it's been around for 3 months. Yeah, we're gonna cut support, and then oh yeah, you guys can read about the DLC in a book, and it's like, bro,
Take it out back and shoot it.
yeah, it's just like, well, I'm gonna put you down, you old boy. Like, please, no. I'm sorry, boy. Don't do the dance.
Yeah, it's like I don't know, because it's like, oh, like just fix the faces. It's like, but like, how much time do you think that would take? Because like that was the first thing I saw immediately when I saw people start uploading gameplay was the faces looked like wax museum sculptures that were left near a lamp too long. So there's kind of like mush. I don't know, like,
Yeah.
and it's like I don't know how much dev time that would have even took to even because like if you have to do all that just to get the game up to the point where it should have been when it came out for something so fundamental as character models, it might be the business call to close it, even though it might have,
Right.
it might have been the People's Choice Awards to go ahead and be like, no, we're going to fix that and do the DLC. But for them, they might have been like, well, we made enough money off of sales to just go, okay, we'll take the hit,
Right.
Because like, what was Andromeda's budget? Let's see if we can see any reportings on that. Which I wish every game should have to report what their actual budget was.
I'm not even sure, to be honest.
It would help if I typed budget in the search instead of just staring back at the Mass
73
Effect
million.
Andromeda. 73 million.
The Witcher 3 had a higher budget.
Yeah. Let's see. How much money did it make? It made 110 million. So they made their money back probably. It was probably a fairly small margin depending on how long they took to develop. I feel like they didn't have a big advertising budget for Andromeda, which might have helped them.
Right.
Or no, so this 73 million apparently included the marketing. So they made what, 37 million dollars. So again, it's not like phenomenal for a studio that size, but I mean it's not horrible either. It's not like they took a loss.
Right.
But that's probably what EA just looked at and said, you did enough, leave it alone. Which is why I wouldn't be surprised, honestly. I'm not saying I want this. I feel like the reason why they might have just said leave it alone is here in the next 3 to 5 years, we're going to hear like they're just going to do new Mass Effect and it's not going to be related to anything, whatever, just kind of soft reboot.
That would be unfortunate. Or honestly, like they could do. There's other things they could do in that franchise. You could get into the Krogan rebellions, the Rachni wars. Like you could be alive during that time. You wouldn't play as a human, which is like kind of the big thing with Mass Effect is like you choose a human person to play as. But I could definitely get behind a game like centers around in the far past like that.
Yeah, there's definitely stuff you can explore with it. I just don't know creatively would EA go for it.
Right.
Because in this situation, I think, at least in my understanding of the industry, as 3 people who don't work there, I imagine it has to be there's some money-hungry EA guy with his feet up on a boardroom table, and then the creative lead and studio head of BioWare come in like, Mr. Moneybags, and he's like, what do you want? And they have to be like, here, we have this idea for a game where like we explore something else in the universe to kind of like give a good game that's like self-contained story, so we don't have to do sequels for it, but like it helps flush out the world. And I think the people would really like, get out. And it's just,
Get out of here.
like, it's basically J. Jonah Jameson. Like,
where's my pills? Not that one. Not that one. They got a game. They got games set up on like a chopping block, and there's like Battlefield 2042, Mass Effect Andromeda, Dragon Age, and like Battlefront 3 or 2, and they're just literally touching every other game except for Battlefield 2042, and then she's like, yeah, it's that one. You choose that one.
It's like, I don't know. like this is where it's hard for these devs. And again, this is the negative side of studios getting bought. But
right,
I don't know. And it's also like hard because I'm pretty sure I don't know. Was BioWare a publicly traded company, or did they just accept a big fat check?
That's a good question.
Because obviously, if you're publicly traded, there's nothing you can do. That's why if you go public, you better be damn sure you own 50% plus one of the shares.
Right. Yeah, I'm not sure. Like, I don't know if they're technically just like kind of wrapped up with Bio or EA, and they're just kind of like they just kind of view EA as like a division or something. But I'm not sure.
Because like I know they fully own them. VG Holding Corp had been bought by Electronic Arts for $775 million, equivalent to $1.14 billion last year. BioWare therefore became a unit of EA. So they were bought by VG Holding, which sounds like it was probably publicly traded.
I see.
Yes. Yeah, they were publicly traded. So EA just bought them in like a hostile takeover kind of deal.
Huh.
And I mean, that's the market. I mean, that's why a lot of these devs, and we're starting to see more of these smaller teams become more prominent. Again, my go-to Golden Child, Remedy, they can do nothing wrong. Like, I mean, they were able to make Control years ago, and like they got it published with someone else. And I think now moving forward, they will publish everything with Epic. That's like their new deal, which helps them out because Epic isn't like a creative burden, from what I hear. Most people who get in bed with them are able to pretty much do whatever they want because they're like, Fortnite runs the checks, do whatever you need to do. Like, because they know they just have to put 3 cool skins in the item shop this month, and they'll make probably $3 billion.
Right. But I think with that, though, I think we are going to wrap it up.
Yeah.
And episode 20 of the Split Screen Experience. As always, I'm Harmon, joined alongside
Jarrett Woodall.
See you, everyone.